let's say that this tax gets implemented, and then a lot of that revenue comes to emerging countries such as South Africa, where the government's under pressure and they can use it to stimulate the economy, kind of thing. I'm guessing that would be part of the broader argument. What effect do you think this tax would have on emerging economies?
Well, I guess first thing is a message for any South African politicians that might happen to watch this. I suspect most of them don't want to watch this because it has messages that are contrary to their narrow self-interest. But just in case any South African politicians or bureaucrats are watching this, rest assured that you will get the short end of the stick. The rich countries of the OECD have already decided that they're going to try to define who gets the additional tax on the basis of where does most of the consumption take place. In other words, there's going to be what sometimes is called formula apportionment, and that formula is going to be defined in ways that screw over emerging countries and benefit France and Germany and Japan and the United States and countries like that. Now, having said that, let me address the more philosophical point. And here's something that I think is very important. When did the Western world become rich? Think about North America, Western Europe. When did they become rich countries? They became rich in the 1700s and 1800s when capitalism replaced feudalism. But one of the features of the capitalism of that era was that government was very small. For the most part, there were no income taxes. There was no welfare state. As a matter of fact, income taxes didn't come about in most countries until the early 1900s, and welfare states didn't come about until, say, the 1930s. And even up until the 1960s, welfare states were very tiny, even in the Western world. So the Western world, places like the United Kingdom, like the United States, like Germany, these countries all became rich when they had no income tax and virtually no welfare state. Well, what's happening with these plans, the OECD anti-tax competition plans, with the global minimum tax plans of the Biden administration, in effect, the rich countries of the world, having become rich when government was small, are now saying, we're not going to allow emerging market economies to use the same strategy to become rich. And this, I think, is profoundly immoral and unjust. Now, to be honest, not that many poor countries are trying to follow this pro-growth recipe for economic growth. When I was in South Africa in 2018, I saw no evidence that the political class was interested in following that growth model. Matter of fact, it's the only growth model that's ever worked. But I didn't see any evidence that they wanted to do it. But just in case there are any poor countries that want to follow the only recipe that's ever delivered prosperity, in effect, the OECD and the Biden administration's Treasury Department are saying, nope, you're not allowed to do that. We're going to condemn you to being perpetually a second-class citizen in the global economy because we simply don't like the competition. We don't want to have any pressure on our countries when we adopt bad policy. And I think that's despicable.